Hello to each and every one of you in your respected places. You are tuned into another segment of Conversations in the Nick of Time. I am your host, Nikki Roach. And as you understand, those who are regulars and those who are new, we welcome you. This is a space, a virtual classroom, a global classroom in which we have experts come and share about leadership excellence and leadership accidents. As we know, we will journey through all of those paths before we are able to get to success. And actually, we need all of them. And I'm finding more and more that those accidents actually position us for the things that we thought we wanted, and sometimes we really don't want, or we need them in a different way. We want to thank Sparkman Pathway to Careers and also KSTL 690 AM, who are the brains and the bodies and the buildings and the facilities and all the resources that come along to make this moment possible. I want to say thank you to each of them. Well, as you know, many of us are still at home, still doing our thing. We've had a very interesting year this past year that has kind of come and gone in regards to life. We've missed a lot of stuff, but at a lot of time, we can reflect on the very fact that most of our time has been online, and we've been bombarded with messaging over and over again. And I am just beyond elated to have Steve Olenski out of Philly, who has an impressive background in regards to helping us understand this whole digital footprint, this whole global idea of branding, marketing, advertising, which at one point, I'm sure many of us thought it was all the same thing. And that's one thing I really want him to address. But to give you just a little bit of background, Steve Alinsky is a true unicorn, he's said to be. Having never graduated college, and you all know how I am about that because I am an educator. And I love hearing these unique stories. But taking a writing course, not ever taken a writing course in his life, he has somehow had a career which has seen him in everything from Forbes. And I mean, he has a footprint, a handprint, a thumbprint, and Forbes as a contributing writer for more than 10 years. And to a creative director and senior copywriter at various ad agencies. He's dubbed at the CMO Whisperer, that's Chief Marketing Officer Whisperer, for and by the former CMO of Walmart. He is one of the most respected names in marketing and advertising today. And for me, after doing my research, I am beyond excited that you would just press pause for a moment to give us this time. You have such a unique ability to interpret and communicate real world marketing trends, gaps, opportunities, just in reading your work. I was just like in awe. From experts all the way to beginners such as myself and novice who are clueless about this. So Steve, welcome to the platform.
Thank you, Nikki. I am so honored to be here. I can't wait to get started. You're going to have a hard time shutting me up because I like. No, I'm armed with my ubiquitous cup of coffee, so I'm ready to go.
And what's that team on there?
That's the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah.
Okay.
I still got to represent. So
we'll accept that today. So, Steve, who is Steve Alinsky? Because you have had such a unique transition and succession plan for your personal life, but now you are offering that to others. Who are you?
Yeah, it's when I look back, Nikki, and think about my career and what I've done, it's humbled me beyond words, you know. And I'm a big fan. I'll reference somebody who's going to show my age, but you probably know who it is. There's a comedian by the name of Bob Newhart.
Yes, I know Bob Newhart.
And anybody under a certain age might not know, but he uses this line that I use all the time. He said, no matter how successful I got, I never lost sight of, every time I was on stage, I kept expecting someone to come on the stage and tap me on the shoulder and say, okay, we're on to you. You know, you've been faking us, conning us long enough, right? So you've never arrived, right? And he was an accountant before he became famous. And he's like, okay, that has stuck with me ever since I read his autobiography, that you never get to that point where someone's going to tap you on the shoulder and go, all right, we're on to you, right? And that has kept me grounded, you know, for the most part. but it's been an incredible run. I started in the blue collar world, believe it or not. I'm the youngest of 6, and all my brothers and sister worked in supermarkets.
Wow.
That's how we cut our teeth. And our father was real big in the A&P food chain. If you guys know the A&P food chain, I know that's dating myself too. It's not around anymore. But when we all got to be 16, it was like, it wasn't like, do you want a job? It's like, you're getting a job. My father was like,
and you knew where?
Oh, absolutely. My father was no nonsense. You're going to work. Okay. You know, as soon as you were legally old enough, you were going to work. So I spent 10 years doing that. And all of us eventually migrated from blue collar into white collar. Okay. But we never lost sight of that rolling up your sleeves, getting your hands dirty mentality. Right. So we talk about this, my brothers and sister and I, about how, we used to do all the cleaning and bringing in shopping carts and picking up spills and all these things. And it never, ever left us as we migrated into the white collar world. So my first foray into the white collar world was literally answering or making phone calls for Prudential Insurance.
Okay. For
the members of the AARP, right? Which back at the time, I thought that's for old people. Of course, now that I'm 55, I'm like,
and you get a discount, right?
And I get a discount. So the people calling me are the ones I would be calling, 25 years ago. But anyway, so I eventually just got did some, for about a year or two, I made, it was kind of like a telephone operator, right? It was my first white collar job. And like I said, you mentioned I'm a college dropout. I tried one semester at Community College of Philadelphia. It just wasn't for me. Moved around within Prudential, eventually made it into the marketing department because of one of my next oldest brother was a high level person there, and he got me in, right? I couldn't even barely spell marketing, let alone knew what marketing was, right? And I kind of faked it till I made it, right, in marketing. And then somewhere in my early 30s, Nikki, and I'm not going to get all religious or philosophical, but I literally had an epiphany to write. I had no writing course ever in my life. Just something was pouring out of me. And I was fortunate at the time. I had two people, my ex-wife and my ex-sister-in-law, who were really, really supportive of me, because a lot of people looked at me in a box, like, this is who you are. You don't know. What do you know about writing? Stop. Right. And it's become a life lesson of mine that when I mentor people, when I talk to college kids and everything, one of the hardest things anybody can do at any age is change someone's perceptions of you.
Okay.
Right. When someone sees you in one light, it is extremely hard to get them to change. Okay. So when I got my first quote official writing role, I was a copywriter at a small ad agency in Philly. I thought I arrived, right? And it was awesome, and I actually got to end up working on a Super Bowl commercial of all things. Okay. And it was a regional spot, but it was still a Super Bowl commercial, right? And I'm thinking I made it, right? Well, then all of a sudden, here comes this thing called blogging, right? What is blogging? I don't even, I bet you most people don't even know that blog is short for weblog.
Okay.
It's become blogging's become, right? Yeah. But it started from something called weblog, and it just migrated, became shortened to blogging, right? So I got the bug to start writing and sharing my thoughts and opinions on things, and I wanted to put it out to the world. So back in those days, you could start your own blog. You can still do it today. So I started my own site, little rinky-dinky site. I didn't care if I was the only one reading it. And then I made it up to creative director at an ad agency, a different agency, senior copywriter. And I'm sitting in my office one day, and I'm reading Advertising Age, which is one of the Bibles in the advertising industry.
Okay.
Right? It's called Ad Age for short. And I decided to email the editor. Hey, I'd love to write something for Ad Age. Didn't know that person from a hole in the wall. I had no street cred. I had no track record. It took me 2 minutes to write this. I wrote the email, got up and went and get a cup of coffee. Okay. The email eventually, fortuitously, serendipitously, whatever, would become my signature style in the way I write. You mentioned how I write. My email was very conversational, self-deprecating, right? Weaved in some pop culture references, very, very different than most people write or other people write. I didn't consciously do that. It's just who I was, right? Got up, got my coffee, came back. 10 minutes later, I had a response. I was blown away, right? And his email basically said to me, Steve, I get upwards of 1,000 emails a day of people wanting to write. Yours made it through the clutter. What do you want to write about? Right. So another life lesson is when I talk to kids and mentors and mentees at any age is you don't get anything you don't ask for.
Okay.
I mean, it's really that simple. You don't get, if you don't ask, you don't get. Right. I had nothing to lose. I had an email. I had 2 minutes to write an email. If the guy never, I'm sorry.
But I was going to say, but here you are, and I'm writing down some words like you didn't care if anyone even read your blog originally.
Yep.
You pushed through, which is a ding, another lesson.
Yep.
You stayed true to your voice, which caused you to cut through the clutter and the static of thousands of people.
Yep.
And this whole idea of perception that you talk about, when people look at you one way, they have a hard time seeing you in a new way.
Yes.
And so that also, we're human beings, that impacts us as well, to where we have this, we talk about imposter syndrome all the time on this show, on this platform. And so you have all that going on, but you still took a gamble and asked, and you say you don't get anything you don't ask for. Where did the nerve come from?
That's a great question. You know what? And all the times I've been on shows and interviewed and stuff, I've never been asked that question, believe it or not. And the way I would answer it is I didn't think about it.
You just knew what you wanted.
I knew what I wanted. And it's kind of I'll tie it back to advertising. You'll love this. That's why I love the Nike slogan. You just do it.
Okay.
I'm not nearly smart enough to say I had this, but I just sat down I'm reading something, in Ad Age. I read an article. It was printed then. It tells you how old I am, right? But I found the name of the editor, found the email. I go, what do I got? If he's going to put his email out there, that's an invitation.
Interesting.
Right?
Because we don't see it. A lot of us don't see it like that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
But that's a shift in mindset.
Oh, without question. There's that fear, that wall of going, oh, I can't do this. I can't. And my point was, what do I care? I don't know this person from a home. He doesn't know me from a home. If he writes me back saying this is the dumbest email I've ever gotten, okay. You're not affecting my life necessarily, right? I'm still going to be me.
Okay.
Right? Or if you didn't respond at all, okay, I tried. Maybe I would have sent a follow-up, right? But within 10 minutes, and that's when it clicked. I'm like, I'm on to something. So wrote a couple pieces at that age, wrote a piece in Adweek, which is another Bible, the advertising. And then I saw this listing for Forbes, and they're looking for writers for what's called to this day, it's called the CMO network. So CMO is Chief Marketing Officer. Again, you don't get anything you don't ask for. Sent them an email. Wow. Sure. We saw your stuff. You gotta, it helped that I was an Ad Age, of course, and an Adweek, right? So that was my street cred, at least to get them to notice me, right? Yeah. And I wrote an article.
That's a great point.
Exactly. I wrote an article, and that's hard. That's like chicken and the egg, right? It's like, I want to write for them, but I can't. Well, how do I get experience if you don't hire me? How do you hire me if I don't have experience? Yeah. It happens all the time, right? So sent Forbes a couple of samples of my work from Ad Age and Adweek. They really liked it. I wrote an article. They edited about 3 words of the first article and published it.
Whoa.
And then they basically gave me the keys to the kingdom of here's your own login. You can write as much as you want, publish what you want. Of course, there's a ton of responsibility that came with that. I couldn't just go on and say how great, somebody was, that kind of thing. Of course not. And you'd be surprised. There were some Forbes writers back in the day who did that when I always thought you're stupid, right? But I took it as a massive responsibility to really own that, right? So over the following 10 years, over 1,500 articles, over 5,000 interviews, everybody from the biggest CMOs of the biggest brands in the world, CEOs, to athletes, to celebrities. I proactively used and unabashedly used and leveraged my Forbes connection. If I wanted to talk to somebody, I said, I'm a Forbes writer. Well, every door opened, right? I ended up going to the Grammy Awards twice, right? I mean, it was an amazing story. So I'll tell that story. So I saw something that the CMO of the Grammy Awards had written. and I got his name, and we're friends to this day. His name's Evan Green. He's no longer there, but we're good friends to this day. And I just shot him a LinkedIn request, right? And I said, hey, Evan, Forbes writer, I'd love to do a story about the Grammy Ring. Hey, Steve, great to meet. Let's talk. One thing led to another. And I ended up doing a story about what does a brand like the Grammys do when it's not, quote, Grammy time.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Like, do they sit around with their feet up, eating chocolate all day, right?
Right, because it's just this one moment.
Exactly. Maybe a month or two building up to it, but
right.
So I said, I'm going to pull back the curtain. He was floored. He said, we've never had a piece done like that. I absolutely love that. I'd love to tell that story. And I did. And they do amazing philanthropic work. They have a whole arm within the Recording Academy that helps down and out musicians. It's amazing, right? So that piece ran. They loved it. So again, unabashedly, I said, what would be a really interesting follow-up is if I come and do a piece during Grammy time. Juxtaposition, right?
But you asked.
I asked, and did I have a hidden agenda? You're damn right I had a hidden agenda. I don't, absolutely not, right? I'm a human being, right? It's the Grammys, right? Hello.
I know.
Oh my God, that's amazing, Steve. Let's do that, okay? I'll have my assistant reach out to you. We'll set everything up. So I'm thinking, okay, wow, like I'm flying. This is awesome. I'm going to the Grammys, okay? Little did I know, Nikki, what was to come. I get an email from his assistant, and he said, and I forget if it was a man or woman, doesn't matter. And they say, well, here's your itinerary. Now the show was on a Sunday that year, right? And I get the itinerary, and it starts the Tuesday before. I'm like, Tuesday? What are you talking about? Tuesday? Like, no, we're gonna fly you in on Monday, right? And on every night from Tuesday right through the Grammys on Sunday, there's a different event that you're going to. I went, what?
You just thought you were just showing up Sunday for you to sit in the audience.
Maybe stay one night.
Experience.
Yes.
You end up getting almost a week-long experience.
The very first night, I'm sitting in a theater in Beverly Hills watching Kevin Spacey interview Lionel Richie for an award that Lionel was going to win later on in that week for his philanthropic work. There's like 200 people to hold. I'm just looking around going, I'm waiting for that tap on the shoulder.
You're not supposed to be here.
But that surrealism gets even more heightened as I tell this story. So the rest of the week, I'm in Hollywood the next night. I'm in another event the next night. There's this big the philanthropic arm of the Grammys is called Music Cares. Okay, so that was when Lionel Richie was being honored for his philanthropic work. Well, Jimmy Kimmel hosts it. The Roots come out. John Legend comes out. All these stars come out. Mm-hmm. They're all singing Lionel Richie songs, right? I'm looking around like, what the hell am I doing here, right? This is crazy, right? The next night, I am invited. I get to go to the biggest pre-Grammy party there is. And it's held by a music producer named Clive Davis. Oh. Clive, right?
Just Clive.
Johnny Cash to Beyonce to Adele,
get out of here.
Whitney. I mean, and Whitney had just died. I was there that year when Whitney had just died. It was surreal, right? When I saw I got that invitation, I'm like, what?
And this is all from an email ask. No, LinkedIn, first of all.
LinkedIn. I called Evan and I said, is this right? I'm going to the Clive. He goes, of course you're going. Okay, right? So I knew I had to rent a tux for the show the next night. So I rent a tux. I get 2 different color vests so I can keep it so I don't have to rent 2 tux. So I change the color, right?
Smart.
I thought it was smart, right? So I get in my Uber. It's at the Beverly Hills Hilton. I pull up, right? There's thousands of people, fans, waiting to see who shows up for this party because it is the who's who, right? And I get out, no one's, of course, paying attention to me, which is fine. And I go through this really long line, massive security, right? As you would imagine. Metal detectors, everything, right? I get in, and there's a little cocktail room first, right? And over there is Richard Branson. Over here is Chris Rock. Over here is like Michael Keaton. Oh, I'm like,
I probably would have not been able to write or do any work because it's too much to digest.
Right. And I had to consciously separate myself from the fandom
Okay.
to the journalist, right? I ended up chatting up Katie Couric and her husband for about a half an hour.
Yeah.
I just became this whirlwind, right? However, the coup de grace was after the cocktail hour, we move into this huge theater, right? With tables, and there's a stage, and there's going to be people performing. And as people migrated to their tables, and I was sitting all the way in the back, I didn't care. I was just there. Who cares, Rose?
I know.
I look and I see somebody with his back to me, and he's talking. And I think he was talking to Suzanne Summers, and I think Caitlyn Jenner, right? It's Sylvester Stallone. And I said, okay. Now, I had talked up other celebs, but if I don't go up to Sylvester Stallone.
Because you have a picture on the.
Exactly. Being from Philly, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I saw that.
So I will never, ever, ever live it down, ever, right? So I bided my time, waited my turn, went up, introduced myself, and he literally, we talked without at least 25 minutes. And what I realized, Nikki, was, and we talked about everything, Philly, our kids, right? What I realized is people like him at that level rarely get to have just, quote, regular conversations. I didn't want anything from him. I wasn't pitching him an idea. Wasn't asking for money. I wasn't asking for an autograph. When you're in that room, in that setting, you're there for a reason. So people's guards come down.
Yeah.
Right? And it was a fascinating kind of study of human nature at the same time as I'm talking to him. Like, he actually wanted to keep talking. And his wife was like, no, we got to go to our table. Like, he's like, oh, it's great talking to you. You know, let's talk again. And I'm like, that was Sylvester Stallone just walked away, right? But he was just his regular guy.
Yeah.
You know, it was, so the rest of the night was surreal beyond surreal, right? Different people are performing. It was just crazy. And they did this incredible tribute to Whitney. Oh my God, it was ridiculous. And because she had just died, I think like 2 or 3 days before.
Okay.
I mean, it was really soon. And Clive Davis was real emotional, as you can imagine. I got to go back the next year.
And what's interesting though,
it was incredible.
What's interesting, even at the end of when you were just talking about speaking with Sylvester Stallone and how even in that conversation, not just in that conversation, but just in the room,
Yep.
you were able to understand the audience.
Yes.
And the needs of that audience.
Great point.
In the room.
Yes.
When we're talking about branding, marketing, advertising, all of that, and
yes.
Understanding, knowing the audience. So whether you're on duty or not,
yes,
you're aware of that. And I think that's something, you know, as we shift into our conversation into the work of
yep.
advertising, marketing, and branding.
Yep.
How important, like, tell us, you know, obviously that is key, but I think sometimes we are a little tone deaf when it comes to understanding that.
Well, we are incredibly tone deaf in a lot of ways. But that's a really, really interesting and quite astute observation of yours, right? That I read the room and I never even thought about this as many times as I've told that story. So that's awesome. Kudos to you, right? Because I did that and I did it subconsciously, right? And when it comes to brands and advertisers and marketers, it's really no different, right? At its core of reading the room, right? Mm-hmm. Of knowing your audience, right? And one of the biggest mistakes, if I start anywhere, I'll start here, is one of the single biggest mistakes brands and marketers make is creating campaigns and products and things for themselves versus their audience, versus their customers.
And we're so attached to it. We won't let it go. Even as a small business owner.
Yep.
Because I know we have a lot of small business owners who follow this platform, and we are so married.
Yes.
To that idea.
Yes. It's incredible. And it becomes psychological.
Yeah.
Right? Where especially if you already have loyalty to a given brand, mm-hmm. right? And you're predisposed, right? I love that brand, right? If they come out with something that someone who's not as loyal goes, that doesn't make any sense. You as the loyal to go, sure it does. Sure it does. They don't do anything wrong. And you can't separate it. Yeah. Right? So now I'm kind of getting into brand equity, which is a whole nother discussion. When brands reach a level of equity where they literally could do no wrong, short of real egregious things, which we won't get into right now. right? But the biggest challenge, and I've been in those, the beauty of my career is I've been on the other side in those brainstorming meetings with ad agencies and clients and those brands where we're thinking of ideas for how to tell a story, the right celebrity to match it with, right? The product itself, right? Oh, there's mismatches of celebrity. That happens more than you think. And you probably don't even realize it when you watch a commercial. I look at it through a discerning eye because it's what I do. But you'll watch something and go, okay, that pairing didn't make any sense, right? And you know what it oftentimes is? It's the CEO or some C-level, CMO, whatever, going, I want to meet that celebrity. Okay. No. I want to meet them and I want them to be part of our brand, but they're not. It doesn't matter. I want literally, I want my picture with that celebrity. I want to know that celebrity.
Or because that celebrity is hot right now.
Exactly.
We need them. That
happens, Nikki. Believe me, it is one of the worst kept secrets, or maybe it's the best kept secrets, whatever. But that happens where some out of touch, tone deaf executive will say, so and so is really hot right now, like you said. Let's reach out to their people. Let's get them doing it without any thought of, does their brand match your brand? Doesn't matter.
Interesting.
Doesn't matter, right? But back to what I was saying earlier about, I've sat in meetings, so many meetings with clients of every size where I've done enough of these where you do research, right? You do market research and we'll present it to the client and I've had clients say to me, I don't care. We're doing this. But your people, your customers and prospects are telling you this is what they want.
Right.
I don't care. I know what they want. When you hear that, you might as well just start the funeral because it's over. Because when you're thinking you know what they want more than they know what they want, it's over.
That is so interesting because I can see how that easily happens on a large scale, but also on a small scale, because it does come back to, I know as small business owners, we always think, oh, come back to your why. What's your why? Mm-hmm. And so the why is usually, it's because it was a why for us personally.
Yes.
And oh my God, that detachment. I'm sitting here even myself like, but I know the why. But you're no, but I need to know their why.
Right. It's not one why over the other. You have to know why you're in business. What are you doing it for? Right? Are you improving the world? Are you giving back? Are you providing whatever that why is? Please don't misunderstand. I'm not saying to eliminate that.
Right. Gotcha.
But there's another why. Maybe it's the second why. Maybe that's a book I should write. It's the second why. We can write it together.
There you go.
It's the other why, right? Quote unquote, the other why. And that is, what is the customer? What is who you're targeting? Why do how are you making their life easier? Right. And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, go ahead.
One of my biggest soapbox issues, and I've written about this ad nauseum, is I think human beings in general, Nikki, tend to do this, but marketers take it to another level. And what that is overcomplicating things. I think we all humans do that.
I was going to say, that's why I laughed, because I'm like, that's all of us.
How many times have you, how many times have we had to, what do you want for dinner? What do you want for dinner? An hour later, you still haven't eaten.
No. Right? Whatever you want to get.
Right? As something as mundane as that. Now, when you put it into marketing and advertising terms, oh my God, it goes on steroids, right? Of constantly rethinking and overthinking. And no, again, I'll use the example of research. When you present something to somebody and go, this is what your 75%, pick a number, are saying this. This is what you got to do. No, it can't be that easy. Go do more research. What? No.
But then it never gets done.
Then it never gets done. Exactly. And then the ultimate is, why didn't this campaign succeed? Gee, I wonder why.
And so you bring up a great point, because the thing is, at some point we have to press pause.
Yep.
Say, this is enough.
Yes.
But I know one thing that I have learned and still learning is that when we talk about this space of advertising, marketing, branding, it is just like I was working with someone on a website and they had to remind me, Nikki, this is a living document. And when I mean by living document, you can change it at any time.
Yep.
It should change as you change and as you do more. And what was interesting, that did not click until that person said something. However, it's like we want everything, just throw it all on there, but you can't. And so it never gets, it did. Oh my God, it was years before it got done because of me.
And by more times than it's too late. You know why?
It was. And actually some of the stuff that I thought was going to be so unique, that was old news. I was late. I missed the bus.
And you know who did do it? Your competitors. Hello?
Actually, and not even just competitors, people that I have coached or talked to.
How does that make you feel?
And I'm like, oh my God. As you said, just do it.
Well, you know the old saying about the cobbler's kids has no shoes, and that thing about, your doctor's his own worst patient. Pick an analogy. It's the gospel. It really is. And I'm living proof of it. I can't promote myself. I can't market. And it sounds like you go through it, and it's so human nature. You help somebody else, of course. Turn the lens inward. Yeah. I'm pretty good at what I do. And everybody like, what are you, crazy? Like if someone said it to you, you're amazing at what you do, and you go, I'm all right. Yeah, maybe a little.
That's what but let's take a quick moment, just if you can unpack for us the difference between, because a lot of us it took a while, or we're still understanding the difference between marketing, advertising, and branding.
Yeah. I mean, that's like it's tale as old as time, right? To use that Disney term, right? The way I define it is advertising is, let me back up. Marketing is kind of the engine, if you will, right? The core of the product, right? You sell the product, right? And the attributes of the product. Advertising is you're telling the story behind the product.
Okay.
Right. And you're getting people interested in it. You're enticing them, right? Through TV, radio, whatever, pick a medium, right? The branding really becomes, not to simplify this, but I am, because that's what I believe in, is the brand is what you stand for. The brand is who you are, right? And whether it's a logo, like I tell people all the time, your logo is who your brand is when you're not around there to talk about, right? Or your website's your brand, when you're not there to talk about. So, and whether it's a brand like Nike, McDonald's, pick a big brand, or a brand like Nikki Roach or Steve Alinsky, everything's a brand. Everybody's a brand, right? So what do you stand for? Why are you in business? What are you doing, right? Are you ethical? Are you moral? Are these things? What do you do? How are you helping the world? What do you want people to think of when they think of your brand, right? When they think of McDonald's, they think, okay, fast food, going out, taking the kids, cheap meal, blah, 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 whatever the case may be, right? So your brand is what you want people to think of. Your brand is what represents you. And that is the most sacrilegious thing, I think, is when I talked about brand equity. It takes a long time to get to that level of brand equity, right?
Right.
But obviously it can be done. And the story I always tell is, I go, pick a brand. And people go, what do you mean? I said, well, just pick any brand. And they'll go, I don't know. I'll go, oh, okay, how about Geico? Right? And people go, okay. I said, when you first heard the word Geico, did you have any clue what it was? Well, no. Now, it's synonymous, right? It's omnipresent because of branding and advertising. And now look, they have a massive budget. Of course, they can do it more than anybody. Other people can, right? I get that. But it's no different, right? It's putting yourself out there, right? And getting it out there and keeping it out there. And that's your brand, right? And Geico this, Geico that. Google, what the hell's Google? Are you spelling goggle wrong? Like, what is Google?
Yeah.
Right? And people hear these now because they're so inherent in our lives that you forget that there was a time when no one heard of them.
That is true. Wow. Okay. You just cracked something.
Okay.
At one point, there was, and actually, you can walk through your house, and the first thing you lay your eyes on, at some point, somebody didn't know it.
Yes.
You didn't even, we didn't even know it.
Yep.
But because of that, the marketing, the branding, the advertising, that whole package,
Yes.
I'm thinking the effort behind it, it becomes known. But we don't, do we do the work that we need to do?
It depends.
As small, I'll say even like major, like you said, like major brands, they have a powerhouse behind them.
Yeah.
But when we talk about small businesses, startups, more storefront type of businesses.
Yep.
I think the consistency is sort of sometimes where we don't.
Well, you're right, but the X factor in all that is, Nikki, in the world we're in today, there's so many more platforms, right? And there's TikTok, there's Instagram, right? So you don't have.
So do you believe in those?
Without question, and for the small and any size brand, but especially smaller brands, because you got to remember 10, 15 years ago, there was broadcast TV, there was radio, there was outdoor. That's it.
You had to do spots. You had to buy.
You had to do spots, right? And what else did you have to do? You had to spend money to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Big money.
Big money. And any small business, maybe they could do one radio spot a month, maybe. Right? Now, with the advent of social media and TikTok and Instagram and the proliferation of those platforms, there's really no excuse for any brand to not, quote, be out there.
But can we really give the customer an experience? Because I know that's one of your priorities on those platforms.
Absolutely. And without question. And the challenge becomes too many small brands and even large brands, to be honest with you, that I see, don't have a strategy behind it, right? They'll just post content to post content. Okay. And there's a phrase I use called checking the box, right? And I apply to many things in my life. Okay. I think a lot of brands, quote, check the box. Okay, I did my Instagram post today. I tweeted today. I'm good. Okay. Are you measuring what you did? Do you have any goals? Are there any long-term strategies behind what you're doing? Or are you just, quote, checking the box that you did an Instagram post today, or you did a TikTok video today?
Interesting.
Right? And any brand, small brand, mid, any, there are large size brands, believe me, people don't realize that they're putting out stuff. I guarantee you there is not 1 ounce of strategy behind it. Not one.
That's the key.
That's the key. Now, the difference is when you get to that level of brand, they can do whatever they want. I mean, let's not kid each other, right? Because they can bomb us with traditional advertising, right? So if a Geico, for example, or Progressive Insurance or Nike or McDonald's put something on Instagram and not necessarily have the biggest strategy behind it, their brand's not going to suffer all that much. You know what I mean? Like, if McDonald's puts something out, and people are not going to go to McDonald's, of course not. I mean, I once wrote a story that a brand like McDonald's could literally never advertise again and stay in business.
Yeah.
Because what if people are going to forget McDonald's? No.
Correct. Even if they skipped, a year, like, okay, we have just had COVID.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything shifted.
Yep.
This past year, and we're still seeing shifts, entering into a new year.
Oh yeah.
And we're like a year in all of this now, which we thought, that'll be over in a couple of weeks. It's been over a year. Yeah. How has that impacted, this whole space of advertising, marketing, and branding?
Well, that's a really, really, that's one of the elephants in the room, right? For brands to go. When COVID first hit, a lot of brands really didn't know what to do, right? And if you remember, a lot of the messaging was, "We're here for you. We're helping out the world, and we're doing everything we can." A lot of brands stopped advertising because they thought it was a bad taste. Okay, and then right, exactly. And the biggest challenge for brands today is kind of is walking the walk, right? To make it really simplistic, they're not just talking the talk. And it's not just to open up this Pandora's box, but it's not just COVID. It's D&I, right? It's societal, right? Where you can't just say, check the box. We hired a D&I executive.
You're speaking my language.
Okay, what does that mean? I don't know, but I was told that we have what? So it's the same principles of you can't just check the box. You have to take action. You have to be involved. It cannot be writing that blank check from the ivory tower, right? It just can't. And too many brands are doing that, not just COVID related, for D&I and everything, right? Equality, everything, right? Consumers today, what I think the biggest impact COVID has had is it has raised the collective awareness level of every single one of us, right? To know that, I always say brands and marketers insult consumers' intelligence. They don't realize that we all know you're in business. We get it. You're trying to make money. We get it, right? We understand, but you have to understand that there's another guy right next door that if you don't give me what I want and don't stand for what I believe, I'm going to go to him or her, right? So I think the biggest takeaway from COVID and the last year and D&I and George Floyd and every other societal issue is that brands are still operating as if it was not, and still thinking that they can just push it out, right? And then everything's going to be fine. But they'll say, a little disclaimer at the bottom, 10% of all proceeds go. Who cares, right? You got to show me something, right? And especially as the millennials get older, which we haven't touched on yet, is demographics, right? The boomers are very aware, but the millennials and then whatever's behind it, which I think is Gen X, I always lose track of.
X, then
Y. I forget, right?
Yeah.
Their brains don't realize they're only going to know a digital age. They're only going to know brands.
Only.
They're only going to know brands that they want to have a social awareness.
Yeah.
And you better be doing something, not just running a commercial that features a diverse family and go.
That you just cast it for this 3 minutes, You
check the box.
Yeah.
Right? Consumers are so much smarter, so much savvier, and the digital generations, I mean, it's going to be like that, and they're going to know everything about you, right? Yeah. And they're going to decide in real time or as close to real time as they can, and they're going to move on. So brand loyalty is going to get even harder to maintain. Where our parents, I'll give you an example, and I'll go way back to my days on the phones, right? So I was trying to sell AARP insurance, right? And we would call people up, and every single person, 9 out of 10, had Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay.
No matter where they were in the country, right? Because that's what they grew up with.
Yes.
Right? Because there was only so many on the block, right? Health insurers on the block. Oh, I can't switch it. And we would say to them, it's the exact same plan for less money. Doesn't matter.
No.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Now, fast forward, there's so many choices. There's so many different options. And if this man or woman is doing something that I agree with from a societal standpoint, I'm going there.
And what's interesting is that when you're talking about social responsibility,
yep,
with the branding, the marketing, the advertising, that is something that many of us, I included, I look for before even making any commitment.
Now, let me ask you this. Let me flip the switch here, and I'll ask you a question. How do you look for it?
I'll either go on the website. Mm-hmm. I listen to the content and the language.
Okay.
In regards to what it is what even caught my attention from them.
Okay.
But also I try to, it's easy now to see who else is doing what you say you do.
Yes.
And so for me, I will, because of my caution and my effort to support companies and brands that align with my beliefs and values, I'm very intentional.
And won't you also pay a little more money for that?
No problem. Pay more.
Right.
No problem.
Right.
As long as I can see your talk matches your walk.
Yes.
And sometimes you give me a chance to even put my hands in, meaning I can come and volunteer. I don't care about being inconvenienced. None of that. Because it's an alignment.
It's incredible. And that's what so many brands are still blind to,
Okay.
thinking, and it's a lot of times, Nikki, it's I don't want to say all, because I don't like to lump everybody in. I'm not a one size fits all guy in anything in life. But back to that brand equity, right? There are brands who have so much equity go, we don't care. They'll never say it, of course, but they'll be thinking
not out of their mouths, but they're saying it through their actions
and words, exactly.
Yeah.
And they think, again, it's going back to, well, they don't know what they don't know. No, we do. We really do.
And
right?
then that's what happens when we're like, well, we'll show you.
Exactly. And now
you're in crisis management mode.
Exactly. And that tsunami, I think, that's coming with the younger generation of, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
We're not, married to our fathers and our mothers' brands, loyalty. That's gone.
Yeah.
That's gone.
Now, speaking of gone are the days in which you do this work in a silo.
Oh, hell yeah.
And you talk about quite often, and even in your our conversation and getting to this point of having this moment together, you stress the importance of collaboration. And then even in some of your research, even one of your articles you did with CMS Wire about collaboration will be the thing for 2021, even for businesses. But then I dug a little bit deeper, and you have a personal advisory board that is, get out of here. Like, I'm reading through the names, like, get out of here. So collaboration, leave us with a couple, tips, or not tips, but let us know why this is important moving forward.
It's the number one thing is check your ego at the door, right? Which is huge. It's just by your reaction, what I mean. Where when you get a lot of like type A's and alphas kind of in a room, that kind of thing, that's a real easy trap to fall into, right? So you got to check your egos at the door. You got to have humility. You got to know, I'm such a believer in this, and I just did a video on this, right? The greatest strengths of a person is not just what they know, but it's what they don't know. And that's, and it's a hard, sometimes people go, oh, okay. You got to think about that. It's what you don't know, right? And it's okay to admit you don't know what you don't know. So when you collaborate with somebody, right, you have to be willing and open, one, to hearing their thoughts, and two, be able to accept the fact they may have better ideas than you do. Okay. Because if you're all going towards a common goal, to me, it's like, I don't care whose idea it was. I literally don't care. But I've been in enough of those kind of meetings and brainstorms, and oh my God, have I been in those meetings where the alpha or like the leader of the room will go, no, we're going to go with my idea. And you go, well, what are we even in for? Why am I even here then? Right. And the whole collective room goes, your idea was not the best, but because you have this title, you're going to just, okay. So collaboration comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes and colors, as you can imagine, but you got to be open. You cannot go into it with this predetermined, this is my idea. I don't care what you say to me. I'll collaborate. I'll check the box, right? But at the end of the day, I'm doing it my way, right? So collaboration, it's egos is the death blow for collaboration.
And then we talk about this collaboration and the importance of making sure, back to that social responsibility, making sure it's the right alignment.
Yep.
All those things are very, very critical. Then there's also, like, what one thing would you say that companies need to be mindful of as we go through this year? Because in reading, this is the year where people will dig a little deeper in their pockets. Like, we're starting to relax a little bit.
Yep.
And we are now beginning to get out more. I was even out yesterday and it was just crowded out. Like, people are like, okay, we've had enough. Like, either we're going to stop living or we're going to start living. Let's get the momentum. What can companies, what are some things they need to be on the lookout for?
Absolutely top of the list. They need to be mindful of, the world's never going to go back the way it was. Okay. So
it just, because that keeps coming up.
Oh yeah. And that can manifest in a lot of different ways depending on the industry, right? But it's just not coming back to ever. I firmly believe that. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is the companies that have pivoted over the last year, as we talked about, in response to societal issues, right?
Right.
When the pandemic, I don't know, officially ends, right? Hopefully this year, God willing, there cannot be it ties back to my first point. There cannot be going back to the way things were. Okay. We don't need the D&I person anymore. We don't need a COVID response team anymore. We don't need to be doing the things that we were doing during this pandemic, during the height of these society. For one thing, we know the societal issues aren't going anywhere. We haven't even started. That's a whole nother. I mean, you can have me back on again. We can talk about that, right? That's a whole nother story.
I know,
right?
we've kind of like quieted because of COVID. So.
That's a whole, exactly. There is, talk about no checking the box. Holy Moses, right? But with COVID, there's no checking the box either in the terms of you're not going to go back to the way it was. You're not going to be able to just spend money freely, meaning the brands and advertisers. And you may have money to spend, but you got to do it in a socially conscious manner. That can never, ever, ever change. It can't, right? And if you were doing it before, keep doing it. If you weren't doing it and then you pivoted and you had this awakening going, oh boy, we need to be more socially conscious. And you might have meant it, and that's great. Don't think when you get that stamp and says the pandemic is officially over, okay, we can disband this communications team, this emergency, that kind of stuff. No, what this should teach you is you need to be at the ready at all times. Because if you think this is the last time this is going to happen, and I don't mean a global pandemic, I just mean something of a mass scale, you're kidding yourself.
Especially with the world becoming more global.
Yes.
Because even, I don't care if you're selling socks to refrigerators, to flowers. Right now, the world has gotten smaller because we're all clicking away on a device.
Yep. Yeah. And that's not going anywhere. It's just not. We'll get back to travel. We'll get back to doing things, but never to the scale it was.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
And so I didn't even, there's so much more that I wanted to tap into.
Oh, we can do a part 2. I'm up for that.
I would love it because the next time I want to talk about content. When I tell you, you have oodles and doodles and oh my God, the content that you produce. Like, where is that coming from?
Now that question I get asked a lot. And it's something I don't take for granted, Nikki. I've just been blessed to be very prolific. There's always 5, 6 ideas in my head, but I've been blessed to be able to write quickly without sacrificing quality. So I can sit at my desk, exactly. And
because a lot of people are trying to write. You see a lot of people writing books. You see, especially this past year, a lot of articles. I'm in higher ed also, and I'm currently a student, so I'm writing different things. And that's what people, let me back up. Mm-hmm. What you hear in the circles of small business owners and new business owners, and then if you niche down, especially with African-American women leaving their corporate jobs at the fastest rate and starting all these businesses, but we don't have the business knowledge.
Right.
But we have passion. We don't realize that what you hear often is put some content out there.
Yep.
But back to what you said, that was so key, strategy though.
Yes.
Like, why are you doing this? And so there is a vein that goes through I don't care what platform it's on. There's a vein that goes through there.
Exactly. And let's not conflate that personal versus business, right? You can do anything you want on your personal account.
Oh yeah.
But your business, there has to be a strategy behind it. What are you trying to accomplish? And then you strategize from there.
Okay.
You can't just check the content box.
Which is what I'm finding. You almost feel pressured.
Oh, without question.
To do something. And But then real quick though, do you think that there should be, when we're talking about branding, marketing, advertising, because I think it's a great idea that we not miss out on the opportunities of those free platforms.
Yes.
Social media. But how important is it to be consistent even on those platforms?
It's extremely important.
Okay.
It's extremely important because the biggest mistake brands and even people make is setting up an account and they either once a month, right? Or they go the other way and go every day for 6 weeks and then they stop.
Okay.
Because then you build up a base and then you disappear.
Okay.
Right. So it's cadence and consistency. You've got to have an editorial calendar is a great idea, right? To have, right? What am I going to do tomorrow? Right? What are you going to do?
It doesn't have to be every day.
No.
It just needs to be a formula though.
Correct. And consistent, right? So your customers know, hey, every Tuesday, Nikki's going to put out her weekly minute tip or something. I don't know, whatever, right?
Okay.
That kind of thing. So they know to look.
That's my word for this year too. It's consistency.
They know and then what happens is you start to build that audience and they're like, okay, it's Tuesday. Nikki's putting out her minute tip of the week.
So you recommend starting, would you start small or
it doesn't
undercommit a little so you can be consistent instead of trying to do something for every day?
No, don't come at it that way. Come at it from what you can commit to.
Okay.
Right? What you're comfortable doing, what you know your schedule will allow.
Okay.
Right? You may say, I can do one every day. Okay. That's fine, but just remember what you signed up for. Right? Because if you say that and you do it for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden it becomes 3 times a week, then it becomes twice a week. And like, wait a minute. You're telling me, and I kept coming back, and now you're not here, right? Now I don't even know when you're doing it.
Now I'm looking for you.
Now I'm looking for you, and guess what? The guy down the street's doing it every day, or he's doing it on a regular schedule, like he said he would, or like she said she would. I'm out. Then you lost it for good. Right? You just be really, when you ask yourself those questions, what can I commit to, and be reasonable. It's fine. Once a week, okay. Where you shoot a video.
I'm glad you bring that up, because there is also pressure, I think, from we all feel the need to do something every day.
Yes.
But then when you're doing something every day, it's not on brand.
Yes.
It's not in alignment. But then also you're just kind of you're doing more damage than good.
Without question. You're checking the box.
Okay.
I'd rather you put out no content than bad content.
Okay.
I mean, there it is, right? I'd rather you put out no content than bad content.
Okay.
This
has been amazing.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely amazing. I've been waiting on this moment. And those listening, whichever platform you're on, another social media connect. We met through someone, but it was through social media.
Absolutely.
It's so funny because when you reached out, I'm like, no, he's not wanting to talk to me.
Oh, now you're humbling me now. Yeah.
I'm so serious. I mean, I'm just honored, and you have provided such great detail in regards to some strategy. I want people to make sure that you go over to his website, where you can begin there. But as you dig in, you're gonna need time. You're gonna need time because it's so many. You have jewels just tucked away, and it is so non-complicated.
And that's what I take the most pride in. Yeah, that's what I take the most pride in.
And it comes through. Through. So you can go to www.CMO-Whisperer. I love this too. CMO-Whisperer.com. I'll make sure that information, it will be posted as well, so that you can go and check them out. But then you can also just Google Steve Alinsky, and good luck sorting through all that content. Steve, I want to thank you so much. As we close out our time for this moment, I always give the guest an opportunity to share some wisdom, a nugget, a thought in the nick of time. And you have this moment to share a message with the world regarding branding strategy and marketing and advertising. What one thing would you want to send, no matter how big, how small the company may be? What one message would you want to give them?
I'm gonna come at this from a personal branding perspective, because I am living proof of the power of a personal brand, right? From the no college, no writing, I always say, like, if a schmuck like me can get to this, right, and develop the personal brand. And the key to a personal brand is, and it's going to sound so Hallmark cardish, but you got to stay true to yourself. You got to be who you are. You cannot look. There's a quote. There's a line that says, "Don't try to be someone